Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the Winifred Curtis Reserve. This is a reserve just across the road from where I live. I thought it was a perfect backdrop to the talk that I'm going to do. So today I thought I'd talk about the cruise that I did in May of this year. Cruised up the coast of Norway from Bergen to Kirkenes. I hope I pronounce all the names right, but yeah, someone might not get right. So we went with a company called Hurtigruten, and the reason we did that is because it was a smaller ship and they tended to go into a lot more places than the cruise ships, the big Vikings of the sea and all those ones. We saw a few of them. They only tend to go up as far as probably Tromsø or Trondheim or something like that, whereas we went right along the coast from, like I said, Bergen to Kirkenes, which is on the Russian border. And you stop at a lot of ports, and the reason they stop at a lot of these ports is because this is a working ship. So it's taking passengers, it's also taking cars, it's also taking freight. But the thing about it is that sometimes it only stops for, you know, for 10-15 minutes some of these ports, so you can't get off the ship. But then again, on some of the stops, we the longest one I think we had was at Alesund, where we stopped for 8 hours. We got to really see that place nicely. So yeah, anyway, and the other advantage of it is that we can go in, the ship, the Hurtigruten ship, can go into a lot more places, and one of those places was Troll Fjord, which was just magnificent. And we went in there at midnight on the way up, and it was, you know, coming into summer, so it was daylight at midnight, so it was just fantastic. We went on the ship called the Richard With, or the Ricard With, whichever way you want to pronounce that, depends on which side of the fence you come from. So it had the capacity for about 590 people on it, although I don't believe we had that many on it. I reckon we probably only had 200. Yeah, I reckon we're only half full. And there is 4 decks, from deck 3 to deck 7. So the ship's facilities. On deck 7 you've got a beautiful viewing platform with great big windows on it, nice big, not recliner chairs, but nice big lounge chairs, and then there's couches there. It's just fantastic. There is also a bar there, but I think it only opens up at about 6 o'clock at night or something like that. But if you go back a bit further along deck 7, there is a bakery and a place where you can get coffees and teas there. And then you go out the back, you go on the viewing platform on the top of deck 7, which has the smoking lounge, and you've got deck chairs and everything out there. I did tend to find that on deck 7 you got a lot of the exhaust fumes, because the exhaust was right there, so didn't spend a lot of time on deck 7. Yeah, so then you go down to deck 6, which I think was just mostly cabins, and then you go down to deck 5. Well, deck 5 had the viewing platform, or the outdoor deck at the rear, which is where we spent most of our time when we were outside the ship, if it was beautiful weather, because you didn't get the exhaust fumes from the ship. I also forgot to mention on deck 6 there is some outdoor spas there as well, although I never got in them, just not my thing, but a lot of people did. So then you go down to deck 4. On deck 4 is where all the restaurants are, which is the main restaurant, which is the back of the ship, which is where we went all the time. And then you've got another restaurant where you've got to pay for your food. I think it's more of a higher class restaurant, and then there was a small pizza place there as well. Also on deck 4 is the information centre. So in the information centre there was always crew in there, and you can go and ask questions. There was also some souvenirs in there, and also there was information centres there, information sessions there, I'm sorry to say, in there, and every day they would talk about what's happening, where they're going to see, points of interest and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. We did a few of those as well. And yes, then you go down to deck 3, which is where our cabin was, and that's just all the smaller, cheaper cabins. There is also a laundromat down there as well. And then you go down below that is where the cars and the freight is held. Yeah, so that's the ship, the layout of the ship. Let me talk about the cabins. So we stayed in the bottom deck on a deck 3, and we had the basic of cabins, which was just 2 beds, although one is you can convert into a sofa. We just left it as a bed. You got a toilet and shower, and you got some cupboards. You do have a TV in there, but you don't have a window outside. Now, before we got on the ship, the day before we got on the ship, we actually got offered an upgrade to a cabin with a window, because like I said, it wasn't a full ship. But it was $1,400 more, and I had a look at the actual cabin, and really it had a window which was about that by that, and I just couldn't see the advantage in it. All we did was we went down to our cabins and we stayed there for showers, toilet and sleeping. The rest of the time we spent up on the main decks, either deck 5 or the viewing cabin or the viewing deck in deck 7, because you just got much better view. So there is other cabins there. You can go right to the big suite one, which has got a bay window on it, and honestly that would be really good, but I don't know the cost of it. That's something you'll have to research yourself if you want to look at that, but I just couldn't see the sense in it. I'd rather spend my money on excursions and other things outside of it, rather than just having a cabin with a great view when I can go up to deck 7. So like I said, on deck 4 was the restaurants. So at the back of the ship was the main restaurant, which is where breakfasts, lunches, dinners, all that was served. Now when we paid for this cruise, we paid everything up front, so we had all our food supplied. We didn't have to pay for anything except drinks, which I'll get to in a minute. And I believe that was the best value for money, because food is incredibly expensive in Norway. When we went out on the land and we had meals out there, you know, even a McDonald's meal can cost you, you know, $30–40, which is a lot for me, I consider. So most of the meals were buffet style. You'd come in and there'd be just, you know, food everywhere, and I must say the food was incredible. If I didn't come out with a couple extra kilos on, everything, you know, was pretty much handmade. You know, you'd have soups, it wasn't out of a tin, it was handmade. Yeah, it was just fantastic. You could not complain about the food. Sometimes we had set menu meals. These were a lot smaller, but they were still very good. You know, we also had some of the local cuisine. I actually did eat reindeer, which wasn't bad. Didn't have any moose, so I didn't have any whale, because whale is something you can't have in Norway. As for the other restaurants, I didn't go to the main restaurant, because the one where you got to pay for, because I just didn't see any sense in it. I was getting all my meals already paid for. And the other thing that we got was we actually had a little thing. We got a little tag that we used to scan off. It was also our key card for the cabin, and on that we had a little symbol that means we could get not free tea and coffee, we paid for it, but we could get tea and coffee wherever we went. So we would just get cups of tea all the time. As for your drinks, well, you got to pay for them. So if you want to have wine or beer or anything like that, you got to pay for it. And alcohol, again, is very expensive in Norway. I only had a couple of beers and a couple of wines with my meal. When I was having my birthday, that was when I had the drinks. But everything else, other than that, I just had tea and coffee, or I just had water, which was brought to your table by your waiter. So the excursions. Well, we didn't do a lot of excursions. The fact is, we only did one. We were going to do the one to the North Cap, but we got cancelled due to really bad weather coming in. So we did the one to the Russian border, which was really interesting. But they are quite expensive, so if you do all of them, you're going to have a fair bit of cash behind you. I don't know what the other excursions were. One I know was where you went out and they got off on a ship. I've actually got video of them hopping off on the ship onto a smaller one, and they went out and had a look at some whales and some sea eagles. So, but it's up to you to find out what the excursions were. Yeah, so the ports of call. You do get to stop at a lot of places. although some you only get to stop for 10-15 minutes and you're not allowed off the ship. But you will get to see the major ones, like Aalesund, Tromsø, Trondheim, Hammerfest, and there's a lot more places, Bodo. I'm not going to go through all the names of the places we stayed at. I will put a little photograph of the actual cruise and, you know, where the stops were. Yeah, there is a lot to see in all these places. You do probably not get to see it all, especially if you only got 2 or 3 hours. You've got to sort of pick which ones you want to go and have a look at, and you've got to be back at the ship in time to go, because otherwise I don't know whether they'd leave without you, but I wasn't going to push it and try and find out that. The scenery, well, what can you say? It's just mind-boggling. Everywhere you look, there's something to look at. You're not just cruising across plain oceans. There's always snow-capped mountains somewhere around you. Even when we went across a major bay called Lofotens, I think it was, you could still see, you know, some kind of islands. And the islands, there's so many islands. I'll put it up here actually how many islands there are. I can't remember how many there were, but there was a lot. So the scenery is staggering. I reckon I spent most of my time just sitting up on the viewing decks and just looking at it. It was just fantastic. Weather, well, we were on the cruise for 11 nights, and I must say that we got lucky. We really did. Even the crew said they've never seen or been on such a cruise with such good weather. But there was somewhere where we got bad weather. You can't expect to be on the North Sea and not get bad weather. So when we came around the coast to Kirkenes, we got some really rough weather. And I mean, when I say rough weather, it was just going up and you could feel your stomach come up, and then you'd go over the wave and you could just hear the ship go down, bang. And when we had stuff flying around in the cabin, we had to take everything off the shelves, and my poor wife, she was really crook for pretty much the 2 nights that we had bad weather for. Once we got round the coast and come back into Kirkenes, it calmed down, the wind wasn't as bad, and we were able to do the Kirkenes tour. But yeah, on the first night they really had trouble getting some dinner out. They postponed it from 6 to 7 to then 7:30, and in the end they said, we're gonna, you know, got to get some food into you. So they opened it up, and I went up and had a look, and as I got there was just a big smash and someone fell down. I actually knew the guy, he was from Canada. Poor guy broke his arm, dislocated his shoulder. So with all the stuff flying around the restaurant, I just said, nah, I grabbed the basket of bread and went back to the cabin and just ate that down there. So yes, expect bad weather. You might even get one where you get mostly bad weather. But so then there was the crew. Well, the waiters were just fantastic. All the people in the information centre, they answered your questions. The information sessions were just fantastic. They made it fun as well. We did do a couple of things where we crossed the Arctic Circle, and they had ceremonies for that, and the crew got really involved in it. You know, there was pouring of ice over you, and then there was one thing where you made a teaspoon of castor oil. So no, it was fantastic. You could not fault the crew. The people that did our cabins, cleaned our cabins, they did a fantastic job. And there was one of that we got to know very well, Julia. She was just fantastic. When my wife was sick, seasick, she got her ginger tablets and everything to try and make it better for her. So yeah, that's pretty much a rundown of the actual the cruise itself, what you can expect. I've probably missed some things in there, but I just can't remember everything. So the final verdict, would I go on a Hurtigruten cruise again? Well, no, I'm probably not going to go on another Hurtigruten cruise again. Not because I didn't enjoy it. I had a fantastic time. It was amazing. It's just that I'm probably never going to go on a cruise again. They're just not my style. Going across the South Pacific wouldn't interest me at all. But having said that, I would totally recommend anyone going to Norway who wanted to do a cruise that Hurtigruten would be the way to do it. You get to see far more than the major big ships like Vikings of the Sea. You certainly won't get to see Troll Fjord, and a lot of the other places the ships just can't get up because they've got to go under these bridges, and that was one bridge we actually went under. I think we only had about a 2 or 3 metre clearance, so we had to go when the tide was right. And that's my take on the Hurtigruten cruises. Totally recommended, nothing bad about them. So anyway, that's all from this video. If you like this channel and like what I do with my camping, consider subscribing to it, and I'll see you in the next one.